Yeah, about specified. Yeah, him and Cole did a good job.
Guess we'll figure out who none of them have come back, so
Yeah.
I'm assuming they probably accept.
Go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. Have the roll call.
Kessler.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Rarden.
Here.
Ewert.
Here.
Benner. Parton.
Yes. Here.
Crum.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Tonight's invocation was given by Pastor Rusty Westerfield of the First Christian Church.
Father, thank you for this day that you've given to us. And God, I just thank you for our city council. I know as a pastor, I thank you for their support for our churches in this community. And God, we just lift them up tonight. You said if we lack wisdom, to ask for it. And so God, we ask for wisdom and guidance, and we ask for your blessing, Lord, here tonight. Bless each person. We love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start then tonight with a special order of business, a public hearing regarding the Community Development Block Grant Project application. So with that, I need to have a motion. We'll use our regular public hearing script as to protect the rights of all parties involved in order to create an opportunity for everyone to speak their opinions and present information. The Haysville City Council follows a specific procedure. The copy is available at the door. Your attention to this procedure is appreciated. So I would open the floor to have a motion to discuss a specific project application to be submitted to the Kansas Department of Commerce for Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Funds under the Community Facilities category. The specific project application to be discussed in street improvements in an area generally bound by 63rd Street South on the north, Seneca Street on the west, 65th Street on the south, and Osage Avenue on the east, including Osage Court. That will consist of 142,000 square feet of 10-inch thick cement-treated base, 128,000 square feet of 2-inch thick asphalt overlay, and associated mass grading, finish grading, erosion control, and traffic control. The estimated project cost is $420,983, with the grant request for $336,000 of the project cost. Other project proposals introduced at the hearing will be considered. Oral and written comments will be recorded and become a part of the Haysville CDBG Citizen Participation Plan. So after all that, I'm ready to have someone make a motion. Mr. Crum?
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing having to do with Community Development Block Grant Project application as explained by the mayor.
Second.
Have a motion second to open the Community Development Block Grant application hearing. Discussion? Question?
Kessler.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Rarden.
Yes.
Ewert.
Yes.
Parton.
Yes.
Crum.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Public hearing is now formally opened. Have any council members had any outside contact regarding this project? If so, please indicate who you have spoken with and the nature of the conversation. What items from the conversation might be relevant to this hearing? Council, anything? Seeing no council, we will then move on to do any members of the city council have a conflict of interest in this matter? If so, please disqualify yourself from further action on the city council for this case. You may choose to speak as a member of the public. Any conflict of interest, council? Seeing none, we'll move on. Has the city received any written or electronic communications in this matter? If so, please read or describe them.
We received no communications from citizens.
Received nothing? Okay. And we'll then go to the staff report. Will?
This will basically be a repeat of the paragraph the mayor read. The project is in the Sunset Fields area, which is that area that he read the boundaries of. And we're looking at doing some paving and drainage improvements there in that area. Total construction cost of $420,982.69, with the community development block grant portion being $336,000, and the city's 25% match. 25% of that would be $84,000, but the remainder of the project is $84,982.69. So as you know, that area does not have hard surface streets. It's got the gravel that we have to grade and maintain the ditches in that area. So we'd be able to put something in there that would have a quality base, then a 2-inch lift of asphalt on top to improve the overall experience in that area.
Mr. Crum?
Are we doing any improvements on drainage? Are we talking about storm sewers? Are we talking about just having better drainage because we have pavement? Are we going to have curbs? What are
We're
we talking
working
about?
on another project that would be concurrent with this project. That would be more of a city-side project where we would be looking at the curb and gutter and also being able to drain a portion of it in the curb and gutter, and then also adding storm drainage pipes. Maybe an overall improved area once CDBG project and the city-side project.
And the remainder, what'd you say, 89, 84,000, what was it?
The portion of this project, more than just the streets, would be $84,982.
Okay, and we're talking about just doing that out of our,
Yes,
Capital
as
improvements.
the others we've paid for that project. So yes, that would come from our capital improvements dollars.
okay,
Yes.
thank you.
That's all I had on the staff report.
Other questions for staff or for Will? Ms. Kestner?
What's the, this is to apply for federal money, correct?
CDBG.
And what's the time frame as far as?
We have to send the application in by November the 1st. And then after that, the award time
I
is
think it's in
later.
January.
January, when the award time is at that point. So nothing would happen unless we know we get the actual award at this point. Other questions, council? If not, I'll move on into the public hearing. Now it's time for a member of the public to speak. You have 5 minutes. If you're presenting good facts and information, this time may be extended by council vote. Please state your name and address if you're anyone in the public that would like to speak. Having no one coming forward, we'll move on then. Any questions from the public for council? Since we don't have any public, I guess we won't have any questions here. At this point, then, we would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Public comment is now closed and the floor is open for council members after we close the public hearing. Ms. Burton?
I make a motion we close the public hearing. Second.
A motion second to close the public hearing. Discussion, question.
Kessler,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
Burden,
Yes.
Ewert,
Yes.
Parton,
Yes.
Crum,
Yes,
Thompson.
Yes.
Yep. That's all that's required that we have to do for the CDBG application is the public hearing, so there won't be any else for us to be voting on until we get down to really, if we're able to get the CDBG at this point. Then move on into the agenda, the presentation and approval of minutes, minutes of September 24th, 2018. Ms. Martin?
I make a motion we accept the minutes from September 24th, 2018 as presented.
second.
Motion second to approve the minutes September 24th, 2018. Discussion? Question?
Kessler,
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Burden.
Yes.
Ewert,
Abstain.
Parton,
Yes.
Crum,
Yes,
Thompson.
Yes.
Item 1, citizens to be heard. A, Kathy Hurley regarding the Living History Rendezvous.
We're doing another year of the Living History Rendezvous and excited to do it. Last year, we were privileged to have 4 classes of 4th graders, which about 88 of them, and we're hoping to expand on that this year. We keep expanding more people. Last year wasn't very good weather, but we had people show up, so I'm asking permission if we can hold the event. I've already gotten the insurance and everything set.
Again, that's November the...
It's 1st through the 4th, the main event is on the 3rd. The 2nd is held aside basically for the school children and is open to the public.
And it's in Riggs Park.
Riggs Park, yes, sir.
We need a motion then for the Living Henry Rendezvous to take place on those dates. Mr. Kessler?
Make a motion, we allow the Living History Rendezvous to take place in Wicks Park on November 1st through the 4th.
Second.
Motion and second to allow the Living History Rendezvous. Discussion? Question?
Kessler,
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Burden.
Yes.
Hewitt,
Yes.
Parton,
Yes.
Crum,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Item 2, approval of license and bonds. We have nothing on the agenda. Item 3, introduction of ordinances and resolution. Nothing on the agenda. Item 4, notices and communications. A, governing body announcements. Council, any announcements? Mr. Crum?
Library coming up on October 11th from 4 to 6 is the next Lego Club meeting. And then it's time for the library's Mystery Dinner Theater. This year will be on Friday, October 12th and Saturday, October 13th. Both of those will be at 6:30. It's at the library. Tickets are $25 a person or $45 a couple. This event's a blast. If you've never gone, you need to try to get out and go. They always do a great job. It's always local people, and they do a really good job on this, and I would really encourage you to go. The next genealogy group will be on the 13th, and next Monday, October 15th, will be the next movie night, and it's a movie called The Forest. So that's what's going on at the library right now.
Ms. Barton?
I just wanted to mention the Haysville Fall Festival starts a week from Friday on the 18th and goes through the weekend. Hopefully weather will cooperate this year. Everybody come out and enjoy themselves.
Very good. I have a long list of announcements from the Senior Center. Wednesday, October 10th, the Resistance Band exercise class at 10 a.m. Thursday, October 11th, Medicare basic presentation from 1 to 5:30. It's a free presentation if you want to know about Medicare customers and options. October 12th, 5:30 is the monthly birthday dinner, followed by Dan Moberly on the saxophone. Monday, October 15th, chair yoga class at 10 o'clock. Tuesday, October 16th, 11 a.m. mystery lunch. They'll meet at the center at 11 and will be carpooled to wherever this mystery lunch may take place. October the 17th is the commodity distribution from 1 to 4. And then October the 19th, they have Bible study at 1 o'clock. Any questions, call the center at 529-5903. Looks like all of the announcements. Item B is a memo to council regarding new business. We do have one new business listed, Barnett Accounting Solutions at 427 Chatham, which is a home business. Item C, a memo to council regarding door-to-door licensing. Echo Water, more water treatments is the one that has the door-to-door. Item 5, old business, we have nothing. Item 6, other business. Ms. Barton, question? Mr. Crum, question?
Yeah, actually, on the door-to-door business, is Echo Water going around? I'm curious, and when we have door-to-door businesses go around, is there any way for us to make sure that they're giving accurate information when they go to a house about our tap water?
If we have somebody that they've given false information to, and they can get it to us, we can definitely.
In the past, when we've received complaints like that, we'll go track them down and find out what's going on and talk to them. We have asked them to leave the city before when that's occurred.
Okay, I guess then I would just ask if you hear something that doesn't sound quite right, just please let staff know so that we can check that for you maybe. Thank you.
Other questions on those announcements? Not seeing any, then we'll go to item A of other business. Consideration of a preliminary and final plat regarding the Bridgeport Baptist Church addition. Rose?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, I provided a copy of the preliminary and the final plat for the Bridgeport Baptist addition. This is a plat that is in our area of influence. It is not within the city limits of Haysville. And all the information is there. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions, council? Again, as you said, this is outside of our city limits, but in the area of influence. Mr. Crum?
I understand that. I'm just really finding it hard to believe that that's not in some sort of a floodplain.
It is in the floodplain, but it is, prior to the adoption of the current FEMA maps from 2016, it was in Zone X, which meant it was not in the floodplain. With the new adoption, it is in the floodplain, it is zoned AH, which is pretty serious. But prior to the 2016 flood map changes adoption, the property owners had been bringing fill into the property, which they could have legally have done, and they stopped before the adoption of the new maps. Therefore, as of today, they have a LOMA that they have applied for. Because it is in the current floodplain, the compensatory storage does have to be addressed, which it is addressed. Where they're going to build the building is actually not going to be in the floodplain. The LOMA will actually show that. And preliminary reports from FEMA shows or indicates that they will be approved for the LOMA.
And is this a relocation for a church, or is this a new church?
This is a new church.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions, council? Seeing none, then we'd either have a motion to deny or approve. Mr. Kestner?
Make a motion we approve the preliminary and final plat for the Bridgeport Baptist Church Edition.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the preliminary and final plat, Bridgeport Baptist Church Edition. Discussion. Question.
Kessler,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
Burden,
Yes.
Hewitt,
Yes.
Parton,
Yes.
Crum,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on then to item B, which is a discussion of the sign code. Before we get into the discussion, I want to kind of give some history and preliminary information for the council and for the public that may be watching Channel 7 or in the past as to why we are discussing this at this point. With that, I would like to have Will go ahead and play and hand out to the council, if you won't be able to understand, the last communication that we had from Mr. Whitmer on this subject. I think it's kind of interesting to hear and to read what he has, as far as I'm concerned, threatened the city with.
All right, here we go.
This is John Whitmer calling. I got a couple of phone calls last night. I guess you guys were in the news on the yard site thing again. So I have to follow up this morning, watch the story from last night. Now I know why I got a couple of calls. So I'm curious, since it's come back again, I'm assuming now we need to take some kind of action to try and resolve it. So I'm curious what you guys are thinking, if you're going to look to address it at the code level wise, if the city's going to revise their municipal code, or if the state needs to have the Attorney General opine through some sort of opinion clarification from the Attorney General's office, or if next session the legislature needs to revise the law to enforce it or put some sort of penalty in for cities that refuse to comply. I'm just curious what you'd like from us. If you need, I can get the Attorney General's office to send clarification. If the City Council is going to address the issue, that would probably be the easiest way to resolve it. Just have you guys change your code back to the way it originally was. But I received 4 calls last night, 2 this morning, so I just thought I'd kind of follow up and see if you guys had discussed what options you were going to take to comply with state law. Give me a call, let me know what your thoughts are, if you had a chance to discuss it, and what your intention was, I suppose, to comply with state law. Again, it's John Whitmer, 990-1095. Thank you.
Last communication was given on 9/26/18 from Mr. Whitmer to us. Again, we'd already asked for Attorney General from him after he threatened it way back earlier on July the 4th, basically. With that also, I think the timeline needs to be really looked at, because when we passed our ordinance, there were a lot of things that had happened previously to our ordinance being passed and discussed. In June the 8th of 2015, as you see, the Reed and Town of Gilbert, which was taken up by the United States Supreme Court, handed down the decision that all signs will have to be content neutral. Then it was in July 1 that took effect was the KSA 252711, which is the state law that then restricts what cities and counties can do with the election signs at that point, which truly is in a difference of the opinion of what the Reed and Town of Gilbert, the United States Supreme Court had passed. On February 23rd, the House passed a bill 100-25 to rescind this state law, which was done. And then on July 10th, the City Council approved our neutral code, of which we discussed at that time. The difference in the state law and the constitutionality was brought up. It was passed by the council with a unanimous vote. And then on May 4th, the Senate committee had the bill died in the Senate committee at that point. So at the time that we passed ours, I think if you remember, Councilman Crum let us know that the state had passed the revision of this state law at this point. So that's kind of the idea, knowing that where we were and what had happened between the state law and the United States Supreme Court at this point. Since then, Mr. Whitmer has also had placed a Facebook post basically saying that I was not a sincere person, which I would hope that this council would not get into that type of situation from each other. We've always kind of respected basically ourselves, even though Mr. Kessler seemed to like the Facebook post that Mr. Whitmer made saying that I was not sincere. So truly, you like to make sure that we don't get into that name-calling type situation that Mr. Whitmer seemed to like to get into at this point. With that, we'll go further in our discussion. If you have any legal questions, please address those to council so they can answer those legal questions. Floor is now open. Mr. Kester?
Well, I think you mentioned first of all, liking Facebook, that's just,
You like this post?
don't read into
You
it.
like this post?
Well, I would not read into that. So, you had mentioned that the House, or the state had passed the bill in 2017. Well, the Senate did not pass it. So it died, so it never was re-advocated. So what it was is what it still is. So, like I've said previously, I don't believe 14 days is long enough for an election sign to be out there on someone's private property. The people are voting, the advanced ballots, or advanced election, people start voting approximately 15 days prior to voting day. The election office sends out advanced ballots about 20 days prior to election day. So people are voting before people are allowed to put signs in their private yards. Supreme Court decision, and I don't see any reason why we cannot still follow state statute, and which, it says, let me go and pass these out there, buddy, is the top part is state statute, the bottom part is what I'm going to be recommending tonight. State statute says placement of political signs during election period. No city or county shall regulate or prohibit the placement of the number of political signs on private property. or the unpaved right-of-way for city streets or county roads on private property during the 45 days prior to any election and the 2 days period following any such election. Cities and counties may regulate the size of a setback distance for the placement of signs as to not impede sight lines or sight distance for safety reasons.
Thank you.
Like I mentioned, I don't see any reason why we cannot have 45 days and still comply with state statute and Supreme Court. If anybody's worried about temporary signs being out for a long period of time, for instance, garage sale signs, I only put my garage sale sign out like the day before the garage sale. I don't have it out 15 days prior. Definitely not going to have it out 45 days prior. So in the city code, under 205, under permit expiration, first 205E, first part talks about expiring of permits. First part talks about permanent signs, the last sentence talks about temporary sign permits. Currently says they shall expire after 30 days. I'm going to make a motion to have that expire after 45 days. Then under 211, temporary sign regulations, under general requirements, number 4, talks about temporary sign permits. Currently states valid for 35 days. I'm going to recommend that changes to 45 days, from 35 to 45. And under 211A9 talks about temporary signs that are exempt from permitting. I'm going to recommend those changes from 2 weeks to 45 days. Like I said, this will make us in compliance, in my opinion, with state statutes and keep us in compliance with the Supreme Court decision. It's kind of interesting to hear from anybody else what they may think before I make a motion.
Mr. Crum?
Will, can you kind of give us an idea what is all covered by temporary signs?
The ones that have been the main discussion or main point are the ones that are under the all temporary signs exempt from permitting. They fit under that certain size, that most political signs, which is the main discussion that's been out there. If that's what you're asking.
So it could be, but I mean, like it can be apartment movers or people that are doing
whatever.
size. So
Garage sale, lose weight, ideological statement, yeah.
Okay. Needless to say, I'd like to put out some signs, and I'm unable to right now. But I also know I don't want signs everywhere, and local government should have more control, which is why I fought for that up at the State House when it passed the House. It's because like right now, you can go down to 55th Street and Seneca and 55th Street and 47th and Meridian and see signs of candidates who are lost the primary. And they're in Wichita city limits, so they're in a city limit, and they're supposed to be picked up 48 hours after the election was over. And when cities don't have the leverage to make sure that these things do get taken care of, then cities can get jumbled up with more signs than people would like to see. I do agree with the fact, though, that we do have an issue because people can start voting on October 17th. The Secretary of State's office or the local election officials will send out mail-out ballots on the 16th. And that could show up in somebody's house at the 17th, and they could vote and put a stamp on it and mail it the same day. So I don't know if there's a way we could do it so that you could say that you could put it up 2 weeks before the beginning of an activity and then have 48 hours after that activity is over to pick it up. The problem I see with that is businesses that have it, that activity goes on all the time and it would never end. So I don't know if there's a way, so I guess this would be for the attorney. You think there'd be a way to word something so that you could do it during a temporary sign for a specific activity with a start and an end date, that you could put it out? And I wouldn't even know if we need to do 2 weeks out, because the 17th is already 23 days out. You could put it out, 20 days before something starts or 10 days before something starts, and then it needs to be picked up 48 hours after that activity is ended.
You have to delineate between signs that are talking about an event as opposed to signs that are just general speech.
And can we legally do that?
What happens then is that our enforcement agent has to read the sign to determine what type of speech we're talking about, because this is an exempt sign from permitting. So, so again, for them to read the sign and make a determination of what kind of speech it is, that puts us afoul of the Supreme Court ruling. My thought was, if we make all temporary signs during the state period of time, if we say you could put up your temporary sign during the 45 days prior and the 2 days after, and then at other times during the year, you got 10 days or your 2 weeks or whatever, the council feels comfortable with. That way we're not forced to read the sign and make a determination as to what it says and determine the type of speech. And we still have a reasonable period of time during the rest of the year. What that reasonable period of time is, you guys are going to have to decide. But otherwise, we're stuck in this kind of catch-22 where we're going to have to figure out what the sign says and make a determination, how we apply our regulations differently based upon what it says and what it's pertaining to.
So we could go in, you're saying that you think we could go in and say that this is the temporary sign law now, but from the time of saying October 1st to November 10th, it'd fall under this 45-day rule.
But it has to be neutral. We can't
Right.
ask someone to read it.
Correct.
So if it is a temporary sign and it's otherwise exempt under our sign code, then you get 45 days prior and 2 days after an election. If you're putting up a garage sale sign, it just happened to be that time of the year, then I guess you got more time to put it up. But it gets us out of the business of trying to determine what the speech is. Because the state statute, what it says is that with our neutral code, that we'd have to go out and determine, is it political speech, is it religious speech, we can't be in that business. So that's kind of, my thought is that we just don't regulate these temporary signs during that period of time, whether it's political or commercial or whatever. But outside of that period of time, we have, a set period that you can keep these signs up.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion, council? Ms. Kester or Mr. Walters?
Yeah, question I have. Glenn, you said that we didn't have any recourse, the statute up to 2 days or 48 hours after, so we would have recourse.
There's no penalty for
There's
it.
no penalty. Except we can pick up the sign. If they want the sign back, then they truly have to pay a penalty. But if they've lost, then what penalty is there?
So if we apply this as their penalty, then we have, I don't necessarily see a penalty. We need to put a penalty in. How's it
Well,
work?
we've had previous discussions on penalties, and it becomes real tough to say who the penalty ought to go to. Is it the property owner? Is it the candidate? Is it the person that may have stuck it out? So putting a penalty in it, as in the discussion we've had, was almost impossible to regulate.
Seems like a difficult situation. If the state says no city or county shall regulate the placement of political signs, and we're saying we can't really be in the business of determining whether it's political or not, we're kind of caught there.
I think
That's what I'm hearing.
that's what we're saying. There's a difference between the Supreme Court ruling and the state law.
Yeah.
Ms. Martin?
Did you say that we had asked the Attorney General for an opinion?
We have not yet, but that is something that I'm going to do.
I'd like to see us do that. Because technically, the other way they could get around it is all the political signs, they could file for a permit and have them out for 30 days because the permits are free.
Yeah, and they could, but the situation there is we actually give size, which means they didn't have to have a permit.
Right.
We'd have to change the code to require them to have permits.
And he didn't put that in here, so.
Mr. Kester?
What city attorney sounds fine, but only problem I see with that is the election date changes all the time. The actual date changes. So I don't know how you would word that to make it go back 45 days prior to election date without specifying.
Well, what I would propose is if you make a reference back to the statute itself, then it covers whenever the election is. So instead of putting the specific dates in our ordinance, we would say that whatever period of time covered by the state statute, we're not going to regulate temporary signs during that period of time.
Where would that be at, under temporary sign? Or
It'd be in addition to our temporary.
So currently in section 211, and in the handout you provided, you know, the time period, section 9, that's where I'd probably recommend putting the reference. The issue with the 45 days is if you put up your political sign 15 days prior to the 45 days that the legislature has out, you know, then you'd have an extra 2 weeks in essence, in addition to. Because your 45 days could run out and you still get the extra time. I mean, if that's your intent, that's fine, but that's the issue with, you know, just changing the amount of time that you have. But that's where I'd recommend putting the reference would be in that section where we currently talk about how long you can leave out the sign.
so under 9, just
I'm sorry, it'd be under section
211A.
211A9, yes.
That the one in the spring.
so where it says, so currently it says 2 weeks, and you're saying we can say, what would be the wording?
We could say, all temporary signs exempt from permitting under this section can or may be displayed during any period of time as described under KSA 25-2711, and during other times of the year for up to 2 weeks, or whatever that period of time might be.
Mr. Crum?
My hopes is that this changes at the state level anyway, so I don't necessarily want to make sure we're match up with theirs. The reason I threw out October 1st and November 10th is because the latest the election could be in November is the 7th. And so that gives you 72 hours on that side, and October 1st isn't 45 days, but it certainly gives you enough time to get your signs out and to be ready to go. That's where I came up with the November 10th, and I just thought October 1st is a good starting date. I mean, because the 45 days out is really vague too, because we talked about you can actually start placing votes on October 17th. The election day is not till November 6th, but you can start voting way before that. So that 45-day thing is kind of, is that 45 days from the election day? Is it 45 days from when you can start mailing in your things? I mean, that's why I was going with a specific date. However, Councilman Parton brought up a really good point, is if we put in dates like that, then you're not covered for primary. The primaries are in August.
I think what Josh was proposing
Would
works
take
pretty
care of
well to
that.
cover everything.
Yeah, because it's talking about election period. Yeah.
Would that cover like special elections too, like if there was a bond issue for something, so just put election, okay, okay.
Ms. Kester?
Now, Josh, would you change anything in the 205E when it talks about for permits, for temporary signs that have permits? Currently it states 30 days.
I think the question is, outside of those periods of time, does the council want to expand? Because the state statute says we're not allowed to regulate them, right? But our permitting section in our sign code says, you know, if you want to get a, you know, if it's a permitted sign, here's how long you can display it. So I think it's within the council's discretion how long that period of time is going to be. Because if it's a political sign under the state statute, then we're not allowed to quote-unquote regulate it at all anyway. So it wouldn't be something you'd apply for a permit for. Does that make sense?
Permit for a temporary sign?
For any sign. So,
So you're saying the 30 days would not affect the, if you change 21189 to word it the way you had worded it, that would not affect the 205E for?
so you're talking about not the temporary type signs you're talking about other size signs?
No, well, yes, the temporary sign, because you can get a permit for a temporary sign, temporary, like a political sign, like a banner type, okay.
Yes, so the entire sign code's gonna have to be made so it complies with it. We're gonna do those election periods of time, we're gonna have to cross-reference all the requirements to make sure that they all comply with that same period of time for private signs on private property. So there could be other cross-references that may need to be made to make sure that that's in compliance with. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, well, I'm gonna go and make a motion that, we have, I like Joshua's idea as far as the time period prior to an election to have this code enforced with the KSA 25-2711. So my motion would be to have the city staff draw up the code so that proper references could be looked at to allow us to comply with state statute.
Mr. Crum?
My question is, a part of the statute, one thing that actually bothers me the most about the state statute is the fact that they talk about political signs can be on private property or unpaved right-of-way streets or county roads. So basically, it can be stuck anywhere that's public right-of-way, and I don't want our streets lined with political signs. So I don't want to make sure that we're following exactly what the state statute is right now, because I think we're covered by the Supreme Court one. I don't want us to have signs all along the main street here in town.
Well, if you read further, that can't happen because they cannot be placed in road right-of-way.
Well, but we talked about in here about matching the,
25, that, yeah.
and so I want to make sure that I want to make sure I'm understanding the motion correct. Because the way Mr. Kessler placed it, he said so that we are in compliance with that statute. And that's in that statute. And I think as a local body, we should be able to control where people put signs on public right-of-way.
And the state law gives us that right.
It's an election.
Sight lines or sight distance. Okay. I want to make sure that was in there, because up above, that's not what I read.
Yeah. State law gives us the right to, for impede sight lines or safety or those type of things, and our present code says they cannot be placed in road right-of-way, which basically says these signs have to be placed on private property. Mr. Walters?
Yeah, I too was wanting to make sure I understood the suggestion here on, that is, you're suggesting just that about political signs that would follow 25-2711 and not change the rest of the issues that you originally brought up. Is that correct?
My motion is to have the city change the ordinance to match it instead of
For political signs?
Right, like what Josh said as far as
Right.
that time period. Not what I wrote down earlier,
Okay.
but just what Josh had said about the time period prior to an election, to be enforced or not enforced during that time period. And then have the city come back with the code for us to review. Because there's going to be a lot of cross references as far as when signs expire, temporary sign permits, things like that. So those would all need to go under exhibit.
Okay. One other question, would this negate the a previous request to check with the Attorney General.
No. I can request that about it.
Can you amend it? That would also check with the Attorney General for future.
Okay, yes, I'll amend it.
There is no second to this motion at this point. Mr. Crum?
I'm still thinking on this. What I have a question is there anything we can do for this election cycle that just happened? Because like I said, people can start voting in 8 days.
Well, the timing then, and Will, you might want to go ahead and go over the timing then.
If we have an ordinance brought back to council, our next council meeting is October 22nd. If it was approved at that point, we'd have to publish it, so that Thursday it would become effective. So basically the 25th.
So there's nothing else that the city could do on it to try to make it happen before then?
Josh,
That would be for the
anything?
attorney, is there any kind of
We
a,
could pass an ordinance tonight, I guess. I mean, this change requires an ordinance, and the ordinance requires publication. So I can't get around those deadlines.
I'll second Russ's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ginger, do you have something that you may be able to read so that everyone understands the motion?
The notes that I have are have staff redraw the code and do cross-referencing to comply with state, only changing the time and not the location of the signs. And for the redraw of the code to not enforce during that window. Is that a mess? That's a mess.
I don't think that's quite where we are, but.
Yeah. That's why we record. I am recording, so.
Yeah, I understand. But everyone at the bench really needs to understand the motion that they're voting on at this point. Josh, I mean, is there something that you'd like to state that may help the clarification of this motion, or?
The way I understood council members' motion was that it's asking for us to draft changes to the sign code to allow for the display of temporary signs or other private signs during the 45 days prior and the 2 days after an election cycle as specified in the state statute, but at the same time keeping our neutral sign code that doesn't make reference to specific types of speech. Is that fair?
Correct, and with the amendment to contact the Attorney General.
Okay, is that what you're seconding?
Yep.
Is that what everyone understands? Okay. We're going to ask for additional discussion if anyone truly wants it. If not, we'll call the question.
Kessler.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Burden.
No.
Ewert.
Yes.
Parton.
Yes.
Crum.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Okay. Move on into the agenda, which is department reports. Will?
I'm nothing tonight.
Janie?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Speaking of elections, we do have people who are not registered at this point, still have time to register until October the 16th. That is the deadline to register for the November 6th election.
Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our visiting officer this evening is Master Police Officer Brady Simmons. He's currently assigned to our investigation section, so he works during the day, during the week. Also, tomorrow morning, Wednesday, October 10th, we have our monthly Coffee with a Cop. This month will be over at the Tri-City Day School in the Haysville High School. It'll be from 7 in the morning until 8:30, so if you're out and about, please stop by and see us. That's it, thanks.
Tony, Public Works?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Got a few updates on some street projects. Our mill and overlay projects. Yesterday, Monday, Mimosa Drive was milled. They're planning to lay asphalt tomorrow if the weather cooperates, and they're hoping to mill down Slade Drive tomorrow as well. Our Slurry Seal project was pushed back. The dates for October 8th and 9th have been pushed back to the 10th and 11th due to the rain. And also, we are happy to announce that the city has once again received the Gold Star Award from the Loss Prevention Program with KMET. This award entitles the city to a 5% discount on work comp insurance. We have received this award since 2005, and to date, that has saved us just over $64,000. So, thank you.
And Georgie.
New Mayor and Council, weather permitting, we are going to have our last movie night in the park this Friday. We'll be showing Hocus Pocus, which will be a Halloween movie, so hopefully the weather clears up. That will start at 7 p.m. and it is free over in Riggs Park. We are still taking registrations for gymnastics and boot camp, and then last thing, we still have a membership drive going on. It'll be going on through October 27th. This is our fitness football, so if anybody's wanting to start getting in shape in the holidays, come down and see us. That's all I have.
Item 8, appointments. We have none on the agenda. Item 9, off agenda, citizen to be heard. If anyone in the audience would like to be heard. KTVH want to be heard? No. We're going to hear from you. We're going to hear from you. Why don't you get from me the other way? No? Okay, well. You're on camera here too. I mean, we send it out, I can be on camera. Okay. No citizens to be heard. Item 10, executive session, we have none. Item 11, bills be paid. Bill be paid for the first half of October.
I would like to make a motion that we pay the first half of October bills.
Second. And I think we also, with this motion, would like to welcome Councilperson Ewert back.
Thank you.
She's, I think, on the road to recovery at this point.
I believe I am.
So we
I hope
welcome
so.
her back with her motion to pay the bills in a second. Call the question.
Kessler?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Burden?
Yes.
Ewert?
Yes.
Barton?
Yes.
Crum?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Item 12, consent agenda, we have nothing. Item 13, council items. A, council concerns. Council, any concerns? Mr. Crum?
So, if next meeting we come back and make a vote on that sign ordinance and it passes, then we have to wait for it to publish before we can start putting out signs. So we're talking about like the 27th. Was that the date we were talking about?
When's the 14-day time frame kick in? The election on the 6th?
It's on the 6th.
Yeah, 6 and 8.
It would be the
23rd.
23rd.
So it'd be the day after anyway.
Be the day after.
Sure wouldn't be till the 25th.
So it could be the 26th?
Well, but you'd have the 23rd already. Based on
Well,
the code that
2
we
weeks
had.
before.
But would have already been published by then?
But the 14 weeks will be in
The
effect
14
until the
days.
Thursday.
That's
So
all.
the
Okay. But that's what we're looking at. So we shouldn't see any political signs in town until then?
right away.
We already do, but.
Well, that's why I was checking. Thank you.
Other concerns, council? Seeing none, we're moving on to council item request updates.
The property at 801 Sunflower is within compliance. The grass was just under 12 inches. The garage at 6441 South Osage did not have any violations. This was observed on Thursday last week. Code enforcement will continue to monitor the case, and the case is considered closed. Thank you.
Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Mayor and Council, make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. Discussion? Question?
Kessler?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Burden?
Yes.
Ewert?
Yes.
Barton?
Yes.
Crum?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Crown, I apologize. Called you by your dad's name. I know I was thinking.